On April 15th of 1912, there was a tragedy that left an impact on the world. This tragedy is now well known as the Titanic. This ship left from Southampton, England on April 10th. They were scheduled to arrive in New York on April 17th. The Titanic was around 375 miles away from reaching their destination when they hit an iceberg, which is about 2 days left of travel. There were approximately 1,500 casualties, leaving only 705 survivors. One iceberg had created a day of tragedy and grief for many. There would not have been so much grief if the correct precautions were taken. The safety of the passengers should have been the main priority while building the ship.
The sinking of the Titanic was not the result of a single failure, but a chain of decisions, designs, and circumstances. The Titanic only carried 20 lifeboats, enough for about half of the 2,224 passengers and crew. The choice of having a limited number of lifeboats was so the deck would be clear and aesthetically pleasing. When the evacuation began, the lifeboats were launched partially filled. This was due to the fact that the crew members were untrained for an emergency. Passengers in third class were unable to reach the lifeboats in time due to barriers and inadequate communication. The Titanic sailed at full speed despite any warnings of icebergs in the North Atlantic. Captain Edward Smith received at least 6 ice warnings on April 14, 1912. However, the decision was made to maintain high speeds to prioritize a faster arrival to New York. This shows how time was more important than caution. The ship's design played a crucial role in the demise of the ship and passengers. The Titanic had watertight compartments, but they were not truly watertight. The bulkheads did not extend high enough to prevent water from spilling between floors. When the Titanic collided with the iceberg, 5 compartments were torn open.
Alexander Carlisle was the chief designer of the Titanic. He was in charge of the watertight compartments and lifeboats. In his original plan, there were 32 lifeboats aboard. There ended up only being 16 lifeboats on the Titanic. Captain Smith oversaw what direction the boat was going and its speed. He had gotten several warnings from his crew and other ships that there were icebergs nearby. It was also said that the ship was going too fast. Lord Pirrie, or William James Pirrie, was the chairman of Harland and Wolff. He was involved in many important decisions, such as deciding the number of lifeboats that were on the Titanic. Thomas Andrews was the managing designer and architect. He believed that the Titanic was unsinkable. He oversaw the final inspection and on-board troubleshooting. He planned to have 12 compartments, but only 6 were put in, so they didn't reach as high as they should have. Bruce Ismay was the managing director of the White Star Line. He wanted to show that the Titanic could get to its destination in 6 days. It was thought that he was pressured by Captain Smith to keep the fast speed of the Titanic. The shipbuilders made the Titanic with 3 million rivets. These rivets were made of substandard iron. If the shipbuilders used stronger, good quality iron, the ship wouldn't have sunk. Frederick Fleet was on lookout duty at the time the iceberg was hit. He saw an object in the distance. He realized that it was an iceberg, but it was too late. He notified Officer Murdoch that there was an iceberg ahead, but they were not able to turn in enough time, leaving them no choice but to hit it. The Titanic had 3 main classes of passengers. Starting with first class, the most expensive section, offered more accommodations and exclusive services. They had bigger rooms with better furniture, a swimming pool, a gym, and other amenities. First-class passengers were wealthy or influential people such as business people, celebrities, and politicians. Second class was more modest but still very comfortable. It was a higher standard than third class, but did not have the extreme luxury of first. The rooms were quite spacious and passengers could enjoy delicious food and amenities, but it was more budget-friendly. Second-class passengers consisted of well-off families and people with an upper-middle-class background. Third class was the least expensive and most basic on the ship. The rooms were crammed. They also did not have bathrooms, so they shared communal bathrooms. They had fewer amenities. Passengers had basic meals and some social places like a general room, smoking room, and dining salons. Third-class passengers were primarily working-class people. These passengers had a much harder time getting access to lifeboats, causing not a lot of these passengers to survive.
With what had happened involving the Titanic, there were new laws that were set. One of the main laws that was enforced due to the Titanic was that boats or ships have to have enough lifeboats or life rafts for every passenger on board. There had to be at least 75% of lifeboats of that capacity. Another law that was enforced was the Radio Act of 1912. This act enforces that all ships have to have constant radio alert for distress signals. Recently, in June of 2023, there was another tragedy. This is known as the OceanGate's Titan submersible implosion. This submersible's purpose was to view the Titanic wreck. With everything that had happened before with the Titanic, you would believe that they would have taken the correct precautions to keep these people safe. This implosion was caused by carbon fiber breakage. This submersible was not designed to correctly withstand the pressure of the deeper parts of the ocean. On this submersible, there were 5 people who all had lost their lives.
People on the Titanic all had rights and responsibilities while on the ship. They had rights to be able to put trust in people that built the ship and the crew that was on board. They should have been able to trust that the ship was built with good quality products and that the correct safety precautions were taken. They also should have been able to trust that the crew was making good decisions to ensure the safety of the passengers. The passengers should have had rights to be safe on a ship that claimed to be unsinkable. They also should have been able to sue for more money after the disaster. All the passengers should have had an equal opportunity to get to safety no matter what class they were in. The crew of the Titanic had responsibilities to run tests thoroughly so that there were no problems. They only ran a few tests and never tested the ship at full speed. The crew also had responsibilities to help the passengers if tragedy did end up happening. The crew wasn't trained to load the lifeboats the correct way, causing confusion when help was really needed. The captain had responsibilities to make sure that he listened to warnings so that his ship wouldn't crash.
The tragedy of the Titanic had made many impacts of the world and its history. The Titanic has caused many laws to be made so that people can be safe while traveling on the water. There were many design flaws that should have been fixed before the Titanic was able to carry passengers. The crew on the ship should have taken the correct precautions to ensure the passengers on board were safe, and if the shipbuilders had used their best materials and would have done everything right the first time, the story of the Titanic would have been entirely different. People should have the right to be safe while traveling, and each of the 3 classes should have each had a fair chance of getting to safety. The Titanic has been very important to history. Many lessons have been learned, and many new safety laws were created because of this tragedy.